Hello, Varun. Welcome to this series. Delighted to be here with you. And as usual, I prepare quite a bit, reading about the founders, the company that they have started, the industry landscape that they are playing in. And I found a lot of very interesting things. One being that your company is all about producing personal care products at this point in time that are toxin-free, that are natural, and of course, it's an FMCG product. And secondly, you're also highly purpose-driven. And I saw that you have got about 160,000 trees planted. And I also see that you are from Hindustan Lever too. And I was looking at it and I said, wow, there's so much of similarity. Firstly, in my own case, I'm a vegan. And I really care about the well-being of the planet and of the animals in particular. So I've turned a vegan and I was a lifelong vegetarian. So something I said, I like this company to begin with. Secondly, I'm an environmental engineer by training. And I started a couple of initiatives. At Mastercard, we started something called Priceless Planet. And it's all about building a planet that is really good for humans as well as for the animals and for the whole habitat around. And we are planting about 100 million trees around the world pretty quickly. And I also started in my role as the president of World Federation of Advertisers, an initiative called Planet Pledge. And a number of companies are joining. Almost some 18 companies have started. They signed up for this to Race to Zero, and we have some 72 or something of that sort brands which are actively involved in 22 advertising associations from around the world. So I said there is a good confluence there. And the last one, I'm also from Hindustan Lever. Spent there about 7 years, very early on. That was about 1,000 years back. I don't know if you were born by then or not. But overall, I said, we're going to have a very good conversation. And as I said, I like your company to begin with based on what you're doing. And I love your background. And it's a delight to be here with you and beginning our conversation. So firstly, I just want to lay a little bit of a foundation or a base on which we can actually build off our conversation now. So I keep talking about marketing being at the verge of being ushered into the fifth paradigm. Marketing has been evolving forever, and always whenever there is a technology that is a real breakthrough, when TV has come, marketing had to reinvent itself. When internet had come, marketing had to reinvent. Each time there was a reinvention of marketing and shifting to a next paradigm, it was propelled by about a couple of technologies, or 3 at the most. But today, we are at the verge of almost 24 technologies which are coming at us like a tsunami. Each one of these technologies like AI, AR, virtual reality, augmented reality, you've got metaverse, which is probably the common catch-all phrase, got autonomous driving vehicles, blockchains, 24 different technologies, each independently capable of transforming marketing. Just imagine the combined effect of these 24 technologies, the confluence, what a disruption it is going to be. And I talk about quantum marketing as the new way to do marketing in this new paradigm, where all the old classical traditional theories of marketing, strategies of marketing, they will simply fail, and we have to reinvent and reimagine. With that as a backdrop, you have entered into a market which is FMCG, highly overcrowded, both by multinational companies as well as by domestic and highly successful companies. Some of the areas when you talk of leveraging Ayurveda has already been done before you by some of the companies. But obviously you found a very unique gap in this entire market, and just want to understand, because I would not have thought many people would be looking at the FMCG market at the time when you entered and say, hey, here is a glaring opportunity, let me dive in. But kudos to you, you jumped in and you're making a gigantic success out of it. Can you just articulate how you saw the gap, what gap you saw, how you got into it, and would love to get your insights on that.
Hey, firstly, thank you so much for having me on this show. Storyboard has been so close to my heart as a student of marketing. I've been following it for decades now, and now to be on the same show is a true honor and pleasure. And to be interviewed by you is even a bigger honor and pleasure, because all of the commonalities that you talked about, right, and what you have achieved in your career is so amazing. So thank you for having me here. And moving on to the story, You know, I could say that, yeah, I mean, we envisioned all of these technologies and that's how we crafted. And but reality is, I would be, I would not be honest if I said that. And because our story does not start with technologies, and our story starts with the basic human need for sense of safety and security for your own child. And that's where it really starts. I mean, we were blessed with a baby in 2014. Um, and like you rightly said, both as part of Unilever as well as in general life, we had a relationship with personal care as a category. And but that relationship, became far more serious when Agastya came into our lives. And because this time it was about applying these products on our baby. And we wanted, for like any other parent, we didn't want anything wrong to touch our baby's body, right? Because the transdermal absorption of babies is almost 2.5 times that of adult skin, and what you apply actually goes in. And while we keep taking care of what we are feeding them, and it's equally important to take care of what we are applying on their bodies, right? So with all of that, we started researching for brands which will fulfill the kind of criteria that we had, right? And over time we had become what they call label readers, right? And we found that in India there were no brand offerings which met the criteria that we had. And ended up ordering stuff from US, UK, calling friends and asking them for sending things, and which was fairly painful. And in journey of a parent who's already stressed, and why should they go through such pain, and is what we felt. And all of these problems became a purpose to solve this for parents in India. And which is when we quit our jobs in 2016, and we started working full time on crafting a brand which will give the sense of safety, security through toxin-free products and using the goodness of nature and to our consumers. And of course, one of the things which we're clearly seeing is the e-commerce revolution, which was just about starting at that time, right? 2015-16 is when it was gaining penetration through Amazon, Flipkart, going deep. And we felt that our consumers are not limited by geography, and they are united by thought, and they are united by their inclination to buy certain clean label and natural personal care products. And these channels clearly unite consumers by needs, right? And don't divide them by geography, and which a lot of physical channels have been doing for decades. And you will, as a brand, you will divide India into metros and small towns and say, okay, my brand is for metros and not from small towns. And we honestly feel that's racial in nature, and because human aspirations are not bound by geographical boundaries, right? Especially in the in the world where content is freely available to be consumed through your mobile phones. And we felt that was a really strong business insight, right? And this revolution is going to clearly disrupt how consumers buy consumer products in India, and which is why we went digital first, and we went aggressively behind shaping up our business using these technologies which were coming in, and especially, like you said, quantum marketing. And I define quantum marketing to be marketing where you're not targeting really large cohorts. In fact, I remember 10 years back as a marketing student, we used to create those pen profiles, right? That Sujata is someone who lives in XYZ city. She does this, she spends her time doing this, right? So now it's not about that. It's about individual focus and personalization and treating each consumers differently, and ability to do that through digital marketing, because you can sharply target them basis what they have searched for or kind of interest they have shown, right? And only reach out to people who have strong inclination. And once you have reached out to them, and you now have ability to complete that transaction by delivering the product at their home. And I think the combination of these two technologies, layered with what you refer to as the AI ML data stack, is going to clearly shape the future of consumer products marketing, which is not just great for companies like us who are trying to create future brands, but also from a perspective of consumers, because they will get to see the most relevant kind of brands and communications which are meant for them. And honestly, I don't think FMCG in India is an overcrowded market, right? I honestly feel it's a brand-starved market. And this is a market where most large companies have looked at the denominator, and always created brands and mixes for the large denominator, and have not looked at the long tail needs or emerging consumer needs and crafted niche propositions specifically targeted at them. I think the next wave of brand creation is going to happen by servicing that long tail of need which exists, and we'll see a lot of beautiful brands getting created over the next decade, which I'm sure I, as a student of marketing, I'm going to enjoy a lot.
Very exciting and very optimistic outlook, which I totally endorse. So here, let me ask you one question, which is, when you're entering a new market, such as FMCG, you're talking about a physical product that is safe, that is researched well, that is tested well. So you're looking at R&D, you're looking at manufacturing, you're looking at distribution and the whole logistics and fulfillment in an appropriate fashion. Which in itself is a gigantic task. On top of it now, you also have got your D2C, where digital channels. And setting up those capabilities is another humongous challenge. And what I also read about your company is that you have got 120 products that you have launched in the last 4 years, which is about 2.5 products every single month. Now that's like, unbelievable level of speed. If you launch one good, successful product in a year, many companies will consider themselves to be very lucky and very successful. Here you are coming up with 2.5 products every single month. How do you actually manage your entire approach and processes, all the way from R&D to go-to-market strategies, that you're able to come with such blazing speeds? Would love your insights on this.
Sure. Let me divide these into two parts. One is the question around innovation and how we look at innovation. And let me take on the question around D2C and how we build that capability separately. I think from an innovation lens, we actually, one of the things that we did and has worked really well for us, is rather than looking only at how FMCG has innovated in the past, we learned from other industries, and the one industry that we have learned a lot from, and applied processes into our company, has been the tech industry. If you look at tech over the last couple of decades, there are a lot of amazing innovation principles like lean innovation, MVP, which have come out of there. And tech is does product innovation in form of an always on improvement cycle, rather than doing it in form of, okay, this is tested, launched, and it's done. It's always in a feedback loop, that you launch something which might be at an MVP level also, but then you continue to learn from consumers, continue improving it, till the point where consumers start saying, oh, this is delight, and we love it, So, I mean, some of those things is what we, made into part of our funnels and processes. The second big thing for us is what I'll go back to. We're a company which believes in innovating basis consumer needs. We don't believe that innovation should be done only basis size of the prize, right? Which is where that one successful product which can take care of your, future business or growth is that philosophy lies. And we believe that there are so many consumers, right, who are looking for niche, long tail kind of products which are specific to them. There are so many consumers who are looking for specific ingredients, and from rice water to vitamin C to tea tree for acne. I mean, and we want to ensure that we are able to service all of these requirements as a brand, and our distribution system allows us to do that, and hence we don't need to stop ourselves because something might not be 100 crore opportunity as a range, right? If it solves the consumer's problem, if it feels like we are the brand that is listening to them and launching products which is according to their needs, right, we will do it, right? And a model just allows us to do that. And so that, I think, is how we think about innovation. And hence we are very, very aggressive. At any point of time, there are 18 to 20 projects which are going parallelly. We have a large innovation and R&D team who's absolutely at it. We had a very strong partnership with a lot of global and Indian ingredient providers, R&D labs who help us sort of develop things quickly, right? So I think all of that has helped us innovate fairly quickly. Now,
so Varun, just before you get into the D2C aspect and the digital, what you're saying, it really resonates so much to me. And in the context of Mastercard, one of the things we have done is very instructive and not as drastically expeditious as in your case it is. But we partnered with an organization called Stand Up to Cancer Foundation to find out drugs for cancer cure of different forms. Now, typically the pharmaceutical industries are also looking at the size of the prize. So many conditions of cancer are not even really addressed. So we said that's what we have to. So that really resonates with what you are saying. And applying some of the principles of what the tech companies are doing, for example, we have been able to, or they have been able to, really speaking, move 7 drugs from molecule stage all the way to FDA approvals, 7 drugs in a matter of over 12 years. Now, when you look at your situation, of course, you're talking of 2.5 products a month, but in the past, it used to take 1 drug was 12 years. Now we got 7 drugs and a methodology for ovarian cancer early detection happening all in such a short period of time. So what you say really resonates very well. And probably many other companies, particularly in the physical world or in the R&D world, they should look at what you're really doing, study it, and apply that. But kudos to you, it's fantastic. So please continue for the second part, which is in terms of your D2C and how you are approaching the digital architecture and reaching out the consumers in an effective fashion.
So Raja, I think the difference between some of the other companies who had strong traditional distributions and are now looking at D2C as a channel, versus us, would be we were born with the D2C approach, right? And hence that was one of the first strengths that we built in. And in fact, even today, one of the principles that we hold very dearly to us is own the core and outsource the rest, right? I mean, whatever is not absolutely core to your organization in terms of competitive differentiation is something that an organization probably should not do. And it should outsource it to someone who has much better control and delivery promises in that area, right? So from logistics to delivery to even high quality manufacturing, and all of these are areas where we have got amazing partners who've got great strengths in that area, and they take away some of that bandwidth from our table, so that we can focus a lot more on what we want to do and what we know best, which is brand building, innovation, D2C, platform management and growth funnels, right? So all of that is what we're great at, and we want to continue to be even better at as we move in the future. And hence, that's the part where we have been investing from an organization perspective, from a building capability perspective, from very early on. And so the scale for us did not come sort of, suddenly. It came inch by inch because of the way we were building the capabilities of the organization in that direction. And given that clear inclination and lean in that we had towards this being a true disruptor in the FMCG ecosystem.
My question to you would be, how are you approaching your brand and your branding strategy? You have got a mind-blowing 500 brands already with you. And I'm sure you'll keep expanding the range as you're going into the future. You might even be acquiring some companies and some of their own brands. So what is your branding approach?
So from a approach towards building a brand, I think from very early on, one of the things that we have believed in very strongly is that this millennia or this generation of millennials believes in buying why-based brands and not what-based brands, which is where the purpose philosophy comes into play. And so they would rather buy into why you exist, than selling them what you sell. And if they buy into why you exist, then they will actually not just buy your what, they will buy whatever, right, from you. And
Beautifully.
it's been now proven through multiple brands which have become fairly valuable. And you talked about Apple, right? Apple is an amazing why-based brand, and where from phones to laptops to watches and now probably to cars, right? And the people who believe in Apple's design philosophy and why, right, are going to buy into all of those. And otherwise, thinking about a mobile phone company launching cars, right, was almost impossible some time back. And back home, if you talk about a brand like Patanjali, and again, a brand which is a why-based brand, right? And 10 years back, if you will ask a marketer, can you imagine someone using the same brand's ghee as well as phenyl in the same kitchen? And probably the answer will be, you must be crazy, right? That's the big change that we are seeing happening. And I believe this is the millennium of why-based brands, and that's the philosophy that we are kind of building brands with, which is a purpose-based philosophy. And our purpose-based philosophy sits on three different pillars, right? Which is product, process, and perspective. And we believe that a brand's purpose needs to come to life, right, across these three parts of the continuum. So for example, for a Mamaearth, the purpose is goodness inside. And goodness inside the product, right, which is all about no nasties and the power of natural goodness. Goodness inside our processes, right, which is all about being PETA certified, having plant goodness, recycling 2 times the amount of plastic that we use, and all of those are part of our process. And our perspective, right, where we believe that beauty is not about how you look, and beauty is about what you do, right? And that is what makes you beautiful, right? And that is what we should be teaching our children, right? So that the next generation that grows up, right, sees the world and sees beauty with a very different lens, right, from what our generation today is looking at, right? And we'll probably spread that perspective out of the world, right? So that's how we want to build brands, right? And each brand that we build will have this pillar structure with it.
If you look at today, consumers are overwhelmed with enormous amount of information in general. There are a lot of messages which are thrown at them, and it has been estimated that on an average, a consumer is bombarded with between anywhere like 3,000 to 5,000 messages every single day. And that's humanly impossible for them to process it and even act upon them. So, and other interesting statistic is the span of attention of human beings is shrinking. And now it is less than that of a goldfish at under 8 seconds. So you talk of a narrow span of attention and 5,000 messages trying to get through that narrow channel and register an impact on the consumer's brain, on their feelings, and make them act, do things that you would want as a brand person. Against this backdrop, how are you approaching your advertising strategy or communication strategy more broadly? Because this is a very, very daunting, what you call scenario. And just one point I want to add to that, and I'll let you answer. Whenever I turn on any channel, particularly in India, and I still watch Indian channels prolifically, it's almost annoying to me to see the number of ads which are thrown out at me. There is all more ads than even there is the content. And once there is an ad break, they rewind a little bit and you have to suffer the last segment's little content repeated and then again continue. It's a horrible experience. It's extremely, and if you look at the screens, they are totally cluttered with ads and ads and ads. Now, if I as a consumer feel this way, it's a nightmare for me as a marketer, saying that if this is how consumers are feeling, how are we even going to cut through? And so what are your strategies in terms of how are you reaching the consumers? How are you connecting with them? How are you impressing upon them the purpose as well as the quality of your products and their performance, and then influence their preference in favor of your brand or brands?
So I think firstly, I would say you're right. The approach of just bombarding messages and expecting consumers to sort of digest it and act upon it is becoming a little passé. And in fact, one of the first things that I started imbibing inside the organization was a move away from outbound marketing to inbound marketing. And outbound marketing is all about what you said, right? Just taking a message and sort of doing that reach and frequency approach, saying that, just show it 6 to 7 times, right? At least one of those times, there's a high probability that they would be in the right mindset and they will absorb the message. And inbound marketing, on the other hand, approaches advertising from a very different lens, right? Inbound marketing approaches it from a lens of that the consumers are always looking for some kind of solutions, right? And they have problems, they're going to look for solutions, and they're going to look for solutions either by searching for it on a Google, right, or by talking about it, or by clicking on something which is a content piece, discovery piece, which they find interesting. And now, when they have shown that intent, right, is where the inbound marketing funnel really begins, right? Which is where it says that now the consumer is showing intent, right, that they are looking for a certain kind of a solution. And how do you then take them from that intent and to showing your content and your brand and as a solution to the problem that they're looking for, is how you create that inbound funnel. And we do a lot more of that than just bombarding with impressions. And that said, I would also say the mass media or some of the large reach channels, right, still have a lot of value, but the content needs to be crafted right. And the story that you're telling needs to be engaging, right? People are on these platforms, be it television or on a YouTube or some of the other platforms, right, to consume entertaining content. And if you create your content and make it from a manner that it is engaging and it's a story which keeps the consumer hooked, right? And then you'll be actually able to land the other messages around the product as well, right? So I think those mediums also, it is not the medium that is at fault, right? But it is the quality of content that probably might be going out, right? Which could cause some of that banality that might be coming through. And we're fairly careful about the stories that we tell and the way we create content to ensure that that's something which is exciting for our viewers.
See, in fact, I would love to engage with you probably at some other time, either on camera or off camera, which is in terms of advertising. I keep going around saying that advertising, as we know it, is dead. The need for messaging is there. The need for communications is there. But the methodologies are absolutely incorrect at this point in time, whether it is digital or on the mainstream traditional channels or whatever, but that's a topic for another discussion. Now, when you're looking at marketing, I can anticipate what your answer is going to be, but I still will ask you. When you look at marketing, typically you see there is focus on performance, there is focus on branding. And so performance marketing and brand marketing. It's philosophically, it's right to say they're not mutually exclusive. Like, there are two different things. You can communicate the brand effectively and yet drive performance. But time and again, a lot of studies have shown that the effects, if you are single-mindedly focusing on performance, you can always subordinate brand and get absolutely terrific results. On the other hand, in the immediate future. On the other hand, when you're focused single-mindedly on the brand and don't bother about performance, it can take your business to a different level, but not today, it'll be down the line. As a startup, obviously your idea is to grow. And when you have seen your numbers from 17 crores to 500 crores, that's like, a crazy kind of a growth. And anyone will give an arm and a leg to get that kind of a growth. And in a highly competitive field that you are in, what is your approach? And I would love to hear slightly different than they're not mutually exclusive, which is performance marketing and brand marketing.
No, like I said, I mean, we wouldn't want to define things like that, right? Every communication, right, has a certain objective. And a certain communication might have an objective that you want to drive awareness that your brand has launched a certain product. And to the consumers who are already aware of the brand, might be using some other products, right? But now you want to tell them that this product is there. And the objective of another communication, right, might be that you want to tell the consumers, right, of why you exist, right, and what is it that you believe in, right, so that they buy into your why. And there could be another communication which is all about, right, you want to push them to take a decision, right, around a sale now. And they know about your brand, and they have shown interest in a certain line of product. But now you want them to take that decision of buying that product, right, rather than delaying that decision, right? So to me, all of these are human communications, right? I mean, there is the brand, performance are all sort of strategy terms, right? These are all human communications. There is certain objective behind each one of these communications, and there'll be a certain very different target audience for this communication, right? The brand, why could be a very broad audience. The next audience could be the product, which is a consideration building and social proof around that, right? And then the last, the deepest audience will be who is engaged with the last one, and now that they are ready to buy, right? But you want to give them that last little nudge, right, of why you should buy now, right? And get that going, which is what people refer to extensively as performance marketing, right? But finally, it's all part of that funnel, right? Where you're taking consumers through one message to the other and ensuring that finally it leads to purchase, right? Because without purchase, right, and actual brand trials, right, brand building doesn't happen. And usage of brand is the strongest way to build the brand, right? And finally, the job of every marketer, right, has to be driving trials and driving usage for the brand, right? I mean, how you route that, what kind of human communications that you use through that journey, and what is the ratio of those communications is a strategy that different companies, depending upon different kind of growth ambitions, different kind of consumer subsets, right, might choose to do differently. But finally, it's a human communication with a certain objective, and as long as that objective is being achieved, and you are measuring it through either qualitative metrics, through quantitative metrics, which are brand tracks, or through the sales numbers, right? It's fine. They should move the needle which they're supposed to.
In fact, I would not disagree with you on this at all. But I think there's an opportunity for discussion. At some of the time, I would guess, one of the key things which is now emerging, depending on the kind of the product category or the kind of market and the stage of evolution of the market, where the concept of purchase funnel itself is collapsing completely. So in terms of the sequential way how people would advance from one stage to the next stage to the next stage, and finally they become customers who are very loyal, that itself is collapsing. And even more provocatively to state that loyalty itself as a concept is dead. It's just not there. It's a question of affinity at best, and its stickiness that is generated and misunderstood to be loyalty. But topic for another discussion. Many companies, they propound that they are purpose-driven. It's almost become like a politically correct statement that every CEO has to make, that I am purpose-driven, my company is purpose-driven, and then we are doing things for the society at large. But as I said, there's purpose washing on that. And there are a few companies which actually are cutting through the hype and really living and walking that talk, so to speak, and living that purpose-drivenness day in and day out basis, which also has got a phenomenal positive impact, not just on society, but also on their own employees. And it has been shown that companies which are more purpose-driven, their returns overall seems to be 42% higher than those companies which are not seen to be purpose-driven. And consumers are expecting that brands stand for a purpose, that they take bold action against the purpose and so on. And I applaud you for the tree plantation effort that you are doing. And you have got already, I believe, more than 160,000 trees that you have planted. And consumers, I saw the videos and they were very, very, very nice. The expression on the faces of those consumers when they discovered that trees have been planted in their name was nothing short of priceless, right? So talk to me a little bit more. Trust is obviously very deeply connected to the purpose and how you're living your purpose, etc. But one part of it is in terms of the planet aspect and saving the planet, planting the trees. How else are you bringing your purposefulness to life in your company?
So I think, like you rightly said, it is not about just crafting or defining a purpose. It's about living the purpose day in, day out, right? And if goodness inside is the purpose that Mamaearth stands for, and I mean, in all manners possible, we want to bring that purpose to life, right? And not just bring it to life in terms of saying things, but by actually doing things, right? We believe that, like I said, right, beautiful is what beautiful does, and is what we believe in, right? So from that perspective, the walk the talk is what we are very careful about, right? So whatever we sign on for, and that this is how we're going to make a difference to our communities or our planet, and we want to make sure that we are visually showing you how we're doing it, right? So in case of planting trees, we know of a lot of initiatives where tree planting has been pledged, but there probably rarely would be initiatives where you connect it back to the consumer and you actually show it to them, and of how their choice has made a difference, and actually show them visually where that tree has been planted, and show an image of that tree. And then we're not just planting these trees. The big thing is most trees would, almost 50% trees die in the first 6 months if you don't care for them and not provide them the right nutrition and right. So we actually have ensured that these 168,000 trees, we own the responsibility of raising them for 3 years, and which will ensure that they get that right roots and grounds, and then they grow up to be the tall trees that we want them to be, which can probably give oxygen to 5 families throughout the year, right? So per tree. So I think just that walking the talk. Similarly, when it comes to plastics, right? We upload our plastic recycling certificates every month, right? As to how much plastic did we recycle last month. And last month we recycled close to 200 metric tons of plastic, right? Which is again 2 times of what we consume, right? So I think just showing, visually demonstrating and showing what you are doing, right, rather than just talking about it, right, makes an incredible amount of difference, right? And making it a part of your growth construct, right, rather than a marketing campaign, and again makes sure that it doesn't fall off, right, as you grow.
Brilliant. I have read somewhere, one of the articles said that you want to be the FMCG conglomerate of the future. I don't know if it has been accurately attributed to you, but that's what I read in one of the articles. And I thought that's a very bold aspiration that you have, and it's fantastic. And probably globality will feature as part of your game plan. So when you look at the global situation right now, many of the concepts that you're talking about, they are not just India specific, right? Whether it is caring for the planet, or it's good products for your babies, good products for yourself, being responsible for the safety and security, and being transparent. These principles are absolutely universal, but there are nuances in how they manifest in different countries based on the cultural differences or whatever. So as you are building these global brands, and by the way, I love your brand name, Mamaearth, which can run in any country. I can clearly see that. So from that perspective, just give me a little bit of thoughts around how you're approaching taking your brand global.
So I think it was a very relevant question. Firstly, strategically for us, India is a core market of interest. And in the medium term, large part of our management bandwidth would be dedicated to building brands for Indian millennials. And that is what we have signed on for. And that said, you're right? For brands which scale to a certain level, and we will look at taking them to some of the other markets. And the philosophy there would be to ensure that we are going deep rather than going wide, right? So which means that we might pick up one cluster, right? Could be, for example, Middle East in this case, and say, okay, let's take all our playbooks and let's take our brand architecture and let us understand the consumer there. And if we have to locally innovate for that consumer, right, so let's innovate for that consumer. But let us ensure that we go deep into that market and become share significant in that market, right? Rather than spreading ourselves too thin and going into multiple countries together, right? So I think that's how we will look at international strategy over the next 3 to 5 years.
Makes complete sense, makes total sense. And as usual, again, on this as well, you're very surgical and you're very precise, which is delightful to watch. So to bring this to a close, in summary, what would be your advice to the other marketers or other business people as they are trying to build out their brands, as they're trying to build out their businesses? You have some credibility behind you in terms of being able to comment very authentically on this. What would your advice be? What should marketers, what should company CEOs be looking for as they are trying to build brands that are both endearing and enduring?
I think firstly, and this would not just be an advice to marketers, but all entrepreneurs or anyone who's trying to create something out there, and try to find a problem, right, that you really want to solve, that you really care for, and that your consumers also really care for. And sometimes we start with a product rather than a problem, and that probably might not be the right place to start from. And start from the problem that you're trying to solve, and ensure that whenever you're having decision crisis, and you go back to why you started, and what was the problem that you were trying to solve, and that will be the best compass that you can have for crafting a sustainable business. And second thing that I would like to say is, don't chase funding, chase product market fit, right? Chase great numbers and metrics for the problem that you're solving for, and everything else will follow. And people are there to back you, and but they're going to back you because of your passion for solving that problem and creating that beautiful product, right? So if you focus on that, everything else will fall in place along with it. And third thing that I would recommend is find great people, right? And then treat them with full respect, independence, right? Make them part of your journey, and because great organization and great brands are built by great teams, right? And the earlier you understand that, and the earlier you're able to find the right people for your journey, right? The earlier success will sort of knock on your doors, right? So I think that's the third thing that I would leave people with.
That's absolutely brilliant, Varun. Thank you very much again for sharing your thoughts, your insights, and your perspectives. And I hope the viewers will actually take something valuable out of this whole thing, which I'm sure they will. But thank you very much. Really enjoyed speaking with you, and very proud of what you're accomplishing. And Godspeed. I'm sure you'll really accomplish big things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.